Hey everyone, Austin here with Paragon City Games for another walkthrough Wednesday with you. So this week we're going to be talking about Captain Sonar. Now this game has a similar concept to Battleship in the fact that you're trying to hide your boats from the enemy while also blowing theirs up at the same time, but there are different roles that go along with this, so it's a little bit more complicated and there's a lot more strategy involved in it. Alright, so first thing are going to be the roles. So there's going to be 4 different roles. There's going to be a captain, a first mate, a radio operator, and an engineer. Now each one of these are going to have a different mat or a different board they're going to use in order to do the specific function they need to do in order to help the submarine essentially stay afloat. So we'll go over what the captain does first. So the captain is going to have a map. And there are a bunch of different maps in here and they all have different names. So for example, this is the Charlie map. So both teams are going to be using the Charlie map for this game that they're going to be playing. As you can see, this one is separated into 4 different quadrants, and then along the top it's going to have letters, and on the side it's going to have numbers, and then in between or in each sector there's going to be dots that are going to represent the different spots on the map. The captain is going to be giving out directions on where they're going to move the submarine. So for example, if he were to say, you know, we're going to head north from wherever he decides to start, you're going to move up north. Now, if he says you're going to move south, you're going to move south, east, and west. Okay, and that's where the submarine is going to move. You cannot move diagonally, and you cannot go backwards. You have to be constantly moving either forwards, or to the right, or to the left. So he will be shouting out the different directions, and then he will also be using the different systems that I'll go over in a little bit. There's also a radio operator. Now, they're going to have the same look and map as the captain and as the other team, but they're also going to have a clear sheet that's going to go over this. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow them to draw over the map. What they're trying to do is they're trying to listen into the other captain giving directions. So if the other captain says, hey, we're going to move north, they're going to start anywhere on the map and they're going to go north. Now if he says we're going to move east, he's going to draw east. Oh, we're moving east again. Cool, you're moving east again. Let's move east for a 3rd time. Now, as you can see, that there's a little island that is in the way of the path. And so since you can't move through an island as a submarine, you will actually move this sheet up to where you think they might go. So you might think, oh, they're going to go right here because it's going around the island. Or maybe they're somewhere down here because there's still no island. And you're going to be moving this trying to match the path of the other team's submarine. And the whole time you're going to be giving captain updates on where you think they're going to be. So the captain is in charge of giving orders on where to move. And he uses systems, and the radio operator is going to be trying to find the path of the other team. Now we'll go over the first mate functions. So whenever the team moves, you're going to fill up one of these different devices and different weapons that you can use. Now, most of them are going to have 3 charge-ups, I guess is the best way to call them. And whenever you move, the first mate is going to put an X in one of these. So he decided to put an X in the torpedo. So you move again, you can put another X in the torpedo. You move again, you're not filling the torpedo, maybe you want to use the drone, you put an X in the drone. When it's all the way filled up, the first mate's going to tell the captain, hey, we've got a torpedo ready that we can use. And then the captain is going to basically say, okay, let's use the torpedo, we're going to fire it into this spot. When you use a system, you'll start all over, so you'll erase the markings that you've already made, and then you'll start working on it again. There's going to be 6 different things that you can put it into. You've got a mine and a torpedo. Now these are going to be weapons you're going to use to try to blow up the other team's submarine. You'll have a drone, and you'll also have a sonar. These will be used in order to try to find the location of the other team's submarine. And then you'll have a silence, and you'll have a scenario one as well. So the silence basically says, hey, we're going radio silent. I'm allowed to move certain amount of spaces without telling you which direction that I'm going. And the scenario will be based on the specific scenario that you're playing. When you take damage, the first mate will mark it up here. So you've got 4 slots. You've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you take 4 damage, your submarine has blown up and the other team has won. Or consequently, if the other team has taken 4 damage, then you've won as well. And you can mark it off on here. And so that's what this board will represent. Now, the last one is the engineer. The engineer is in charge of making sure that you can use the different functions on the ship and that you also aren't blowing up your own ship, or your own submarine. So every time you move, there are different sections right here that will be affected. So let's say you're moving north. So the engineer is going to say, okay, we're moving north. I have to mark off one of the little circles on here. So he decides to put an X on the torpedo. Okay, now let's say you move south. Oh, I decide I want to do one on the scenario or the silence one. Oh, now we're moving west. Okay, I'm going to mark another one on the torpedo. Moving east, mark another one on the torpedo. Basically what this is showing is that as you move, your submarine is taking light damage. It doesn't affect your life when it comes to the forward damage on your submarine, but it's taking the system offline. So as you can see, we have different sections, and then each one also has 4 little circles that are connected by these different colored lines. So we've got a gray line, which is right here. We've got an orange line, which comes up here. And then we've got a blue line that kind of circles all the way underneath and comes up over here. When each one of these has been marked off, all 4 of them on the different colored lines, you get to reset the system, which means that you'll basically just erase the X's. That's one way to clear for different weapons and tools that you want to use, and then also make sure that you don't essentially blow up your submarine. So down at the bottom, we have little reactors. If all the ones up top are marked off and you have to start using the ones underneath, you can start marking off the reactors. Now the reactors are okay, you can mark them off unless you have marked all 6 of them off. Once you mark off all 6 of them, you have to announce that the ship is taking damage, and the first mate will write down that you have taken 1 damage. And this will obviously go against you, because as soon as you collect 4 damage, or as soon as you get 4 damage to your submarine explodes and everybody within it dies. Basically, it's a short story. The engineer, like I said, will tell the captain where they can move and what systems they can use to fire as well. Because if you have all 6 of this marked up, you can't really move north anymore until you start clearing some stuff out. So that's what the engineer is supposed to do. So a brief recap. The captain is going to tell you where to move, when to use your different systems, and when you're going to surface. So surfacing means that you have taken some damage and that you want to fix some of that damage. You want to heal some of that damage back. And so the captain's going to say, hey, we're surfacing in this quadrant. So that way the opponent knows where you're surfacing, because obviously in real life, if you surface, you can see the submarine. So you'll tell them which quadrant you're going to surface in, but not the specific spot. So that's what the captain does. The radio operator is in charge of listening to the other captain and marking off the different movements and trying to tell their captain where they think that the other team's submarine is. The first mate will be charging up the different systems within your submarine, and they will be allowing the captain to do the different things that these allow them to do. And then the engineer is going to basically be keeping the submarine afloat, which is not the right word, but we're going to use it here. Basically preventing it from blowing up and allowing everybody to use the systems that they need to use. Each one of these different weapons and systems will have a different thing that they do, obviously. Torpedoes you'll fire into a certain spot to try to blow up the other ship. Mines you'll drop, and then you can detonate them whenever you want. A drone basically allows you to go out and ask the other team where they are, and then the sonar, the other team will have to give you a truth and a lie. So for example, they can say something like, we're in quadrant 3, row 2. And so they could be on row 2, maybe not in quadrant 3, or vice versa. They could be in quadrant 3, but not row 2. So they have to give you a truth and a lie. The silence allows you to move without telling the other team where you're going. And again, the scenario is based on the specific scenario you're playing. So there's 2 different ways that you can play this game. There is a turn-by-turn based game, and there's also a real-time game as well. So obviously the turn-by-turn is, we're going to take a turn doing our stuff, you're going to take a turn doing your stuff, we're going to take a turn, you're going to take a turn. And real-time is you're both doing the same thing at the same time. So as the other team is moving, you're also charging your weapons, they're charging their weapons, they're firing, you're trying to dodge all at the same time. So a little more advanced when you kind of get the hang of the game, but an extremely fun way to play. In between each team, you will have these screens that will be set up, so that way the other team obviously can't look at your papers. They're kind of cool. Got some cool little artwork on them, on the front and on the back. So there's 2 of these that will come in the game to help separate as well. This is a game that you can play between 2 to 8 players. If you play a 2-player game, you're going to have to be doing all of these different functions. If you're playing like a 4-player game, you'll split it in half, so you'll do 2, they'll do 2. And if you play an 8-player game, every player will have their own role that they will play on your team. Like I said earlier, the way to win the game is you try to deal 4 damage to the other team's submarine before they deal 4 damage to you. This can be a pretty intense game. It also doesn't have to be, depending on how you want to play. But the first few times you play will kind of be a learning experience where you're thinking, oh yeah, that's what this guy does, that's what this person does, and you start figuring out how to play the game, and it becomes an insane amount of fun after that. We recommend this game to a lot of people who maybe like real-time strategy and trying to figure out, where the other person is hiding and trying to find them while you're trying to hide yourself as well. Takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play this game. It's a pretty decent party game if you have a group that likes to play. We definitely recommend this one as well, and it's good for like a family game night where maybe you want to play something that's a little more complicated than Battleship. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know at 801 Paragon or to message us on Facebook. Thank you, and we will see you next week.